Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we're going to be talking about black market adoptions. So, thank you for joining me on my very merry unbirthday. I was actually born November 29th, 1981, and I was seemingly purchased to replace a child with Down syndrome by a very wealthy family in 1984, brought in through Cape Canaveral and trafficked from Europe. And I actually do have family back there who do miss me. I would like to tell you, when you adopt a child, they're not tabula rasa. They're not a clean slate for you to project your own family's values onto. You need to respect the culture from which they derived for thousands of years. They have ancestors too. And people are not machines. They can't be programmed to be whatever you want them to be. Just like you can't take a blue jay from outside and train it to be a pigeon. You can't train a German shepherd to be a schnauzer. People are no different. We're mammals. We go towards what is similar to us, and instinctively we reject that which is dissimilar to us. Now, foster children in particular, especially those who have been black market adopted, have even more vulnerabilities. By having it hidden from us who our families are, that leads us to potential exploitation going forward when we do actually meet biological relatives. And that's what happened to me. So many of you can't relate to the idea of having nobody in your house that's closely related to you, no one looking out for you. I mean, I cried every day up until about fourth grade because of the abuse that I endured because of the woman who had her original child. And I do have pictures so that I can demonstrate what I'm exactly talking about here. She had her original child taken from her or whatever. So anyway, this here is Lauren Hunsberger. You can see that she has very clear Down syndrome. You can see by her mouth and by the way that her cheeks are and that sort of thing. And this here is Alex. That's me. You can see how this child right here grew up to be me. And this one, who I was told my entire childhood was the same individual, obviously could not have grown up to be me. Cheekbones completely different lips, completely different bone structure. Look at the occipital folds on the eyes. Absolutely not. And then after the point of 1984, then, of course, everything looks like me. Now, what happened to the original Lauren Hunsberger? So what happened to Lauren Hunsberger? Don't know. But I do know that when I was a child, I was strangled. I was thrown up against walls. And, it was excused as, oh, well, obviously I talk back too much. No child deserves to be physically manhandled like that. And honestly, if you're ripping a child's pants down to spank them on the bare ass, you're sexually abusing them, especially if you're smiling as you're doing it. Now, it is not ingratitude for me to no longer speak to people who sexually and violently physically abused me. It is not for me to seek their money or their resources or anything like that, or their support, because why would you go to a poison well to drink? You don't. And that's why I joined Tarika. That's why I found religion in my teenage years and spent my time with my science teachers who were teaching me, C.S. Lewis and, The Final Quest and a lot of Christian and other spiritual works, which then led for me 10 years later going to Moravian University, finding an actual biological relative, learning religion again, and then, getting exploited after he lost that religion. When an adopted child does not know who their family is, and they don't know that feeling of being protected and loved, and they don't have that natural repartee with those that they are raised with, when they finally do meet a biological relative, the feelings that they get are intense and overwhelming, because it's like, who is this person? Why do I want to literally fight the devil on their behalf? And then you find out that they're just a relative, and you haven't really had anybody like that. You've never had that biological connection. And when we're not educated as to our actual origins, when we're not educated about where we come from, what our culture is, what the values have been in our lines for thousands of years, we are instinctive creatures. We are mammals. And you cannot change the nature of something simply by removing it from the environment where it used to be and placing it someplace new and saying, you're going to be what we tell you to be. People and animals are going to be what God made them, regardless of what you or what any other person thinks of them. They're going to follow the lines of their ancestors. You know, my mother did a lot of diplomacy. She had a lot of, allegedly, a lot of different careers throughout the course of her lifetime, just as I have. She clearly was intelligence involved. My father was intelligence involved, and here I am doing the exact same thing as my parents, because a baby blue jay does what elder blue jays do. You can't make a cat into a dog. You can't make a dog into a cat. You can't make an elephant into a camel. And so, too, you can't make a black market foster baby into a completely different genetic line. Now with the Epstein files, and we're seeing more of this revealed with child trafficking all over the world, and how it's been completely made as part of an existing system where individuals like me have become liminal figures because we're not European, we're literally in the United States because some rich family lost their first kid, whether they slammed her head up against the wall until she died, or they institutionalized her, threw her into a quarry, I don't know. May God rest Lauren Hunsberger wherever she is. But now I know why I hated that name, because it was never mine. I've learned a lot about myself. I had health conditions before the age of 2. I've had Switzerland update my cardiac records because I have a pacemaker line. And I still have a scar from it, from right under here that I've had my entire life. I learned that I was intersex. All these things would have been valuable for me to know for my health care. It would have been valuable for me to know from the relative who did know me about my mother, but he chose otherwise. It would have been valuable for me to actually have support and not be exploited for my intelligence career as an analyst and as a chaplain while somebody else made money off of my efforts. So hopefully, as I continue to fight for the rights of other, maligned intelligence personnel, other structurally important persons, I hope that when you see this video, that you understand that I'm not alone. That now you can say, yes, I do know somebody who was trafficked. I do know somebody who was black market adoption. I do know somebody. I was basically trafficked to be domestic labor. I was told to clean things at the age of 4 without giving any instruction why, because that's what I was paid for. That's what they paid for. They paid for a slave. I escaped at 17. There's been multiple attempts at recapture. I'm no one's slave. However, I do choose to serve Allah. I do choose a life of service that is self-chosen, not because anybody else tells me to serve. And I want that choice to be available to everybody. I don't want anybody to be forced into servitude or slavery because somebody purchases them. I don't want anybody to be harmed because somebody thinks that they're less of a person and that they deserve less rights because they are not born to that family but purchased. Children deserve to know where they come from. Closed adoption should never exist. Even if the original parents are abusive and you really are doing a good service by taking in the child, that child still has a right to know where they come from. They do not deserve to be penalized their entire lives for acting differently than the poisoned lake in which they were thrown in. Oh, why are you drowning in this poison lake? Well, because it's poison. Because it's filled with bad fish. It's filled with predators. And luckily, I learned how to swim. So, with that being said, I don't talk to anybody who has ever harmed me. Not anymore. And neither should you. Just because somebody says that there's some sort of obligation for you to continue communication with them because of some sort of relation, either, something they did for you, or because they think they're related to you, or because they think that you owe them for your existence. You owe for the kindness that has been given to you. And if you've received no kindness, khalas, that's it. Live your life. Be the best person you can be. And for those that don't support you in becoming a better person and in your successes, those who will hamstring you and insult you and point out all of your flaws, that's not your family. Your family is who loves you, who supports you, and who will not get in the way of opportunities, who will defend you, and who will provide a stable basis for you to grow and for you to mature and for you to excel. And if you don't have that, may you find that. And it may not be by anybody that you're related to. You know, pay attention to who loves you. Appreciate them. And don't assume that love is just an obligation, because it isn't. Love should make you a better person. And if it doesn't, it's not love. So with that being said, Assalamu alaikum, Koda Hafez, and Auf Wiedersehen. I hope that I can improve communication with my brothers over the next duration, that we can have much better times in the future between myself and my Tarika, between the people that I actually love and support, and that, you know, other people who've been in similar situations to myself can also find freedom. So, take care now. God bless you. And thank you for joining me on my very merry birthday.